I can just give a brief intro as we're getting started. This is the East Liberty Park Community Organization. It's one of the 20 or so city-sanctioned community councils across the city. We represent the area basically east of Liberty Park over to East High, and from about 8th South down to 17th South. It's a nice rectangle just on the east side of Liberty Park. We've been around, I think, since the 70s, from what I've been able to find out. And obviously, things change, borders change occasionally, but I think we've been in our present situation for the past 10 years or so. And there is a board of the East Liberty Park Community Organization. I'll introduce those members in just a little bit. They sort of represent neighborhoods or have specific functions, like treasurer or secretary or business liaison, and kind of guide the mission and the projects at the board that the East Liberty Park Community Organization works on. And then there's the community, the residents, the business owners, people who live and work within the boundaries of ELPCO. And every individual who lives and works here has a vote, just one vote. And so occasionally we will, as a community council, take votes on projects like planning issues. Sometimes it'll be about whether or not to support or oppose a particular project. And then today we'll also be voting on some new members of the board. And you know, we'll be talking about bylaw changes and things like that. So those also require votes. In our May meeting, we voted to donate $2,500 to the Salt Lake Education Fund. And that also required a community vote. So it's pretty informal. We don't really use Robert's Rules of Orders. We prefer to use Bob's Rules of Orders, just a sort of slightly abbreviated form, but we do have bylaws and we do follow them when we remember where they are. And actually, we'll be talking about them today, so we do have them. Does that answer your question, Shoshana? Get off. Although, Daryl, while I'm doing that, do you mind introducing the VIPs and board members so we can keep rolling along?
So I believe Darren Mano is with us. We have Judy Short is on screen. She is our land use advisor. Jason Stevenson, co-chair of ELPCO.
We have a couple of board members too. I saw Andy.
Andrew Stone, I believe,
Stone
is here, board member. Jeff Larson is online. He is East Emerson representative. And I think that's Tim Cosgrove, Mayor's Liaison, is with us. Am I missing? We have some board candidates that will be introduced shortly.
I think Christina Robb from West of East.
Is Christina?
Good to see you, Christina. Yeah. All right, and we are live on Facebook, so the world is watching. At least our slice of the world that algorithms have determined. Yeah, and I think let's see, Detective King, is Detective King on? I thought I saw him.
Yeah, he's on.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Detective King is our Salt Lake City police detective that covers the East Liberty Park area for us.
And I'm just going to share this over to a couple things, and I think we're good to go. And we do have a couple of prospective board members, which we'll be introducing a little bit later on as well, which will be important. But why don't we go ahead and get started? The fire department couldn't park their rig in my house, so we don't have them. But normally we do have Salt Lake City Fire Department and station number 5, which of course you recognize as being right there on 9th South, present when we do in-person meetings. They usually show up in a fire truck, which is also really exciting. But they have not been able to attend the online meetings. We do miss them, but we know they're staying very busy. So then we could jump into the Salt Lake City Police Department, represented by Detective David King. Detective King, could you give us an update about what's going on and what's on your mind?
Well, if I haven't talked to you before, I'm Dave King with the police department, and hope everyone's recovering from this awesome wind, getting their yards all cleaned up. But some of the things we do is a lot of times we say, we need you to call in so that way we can document where different stuff is going on, different crimes. We do track that quite a bit. And if you get onto our website, go to the slcpd.com, you can get on and you can find a spot that says open data, and you can go to ComStat and it'll show the numbers. And it's usually for all of District 5. So you'll get a lot of like Ballpark and Liberty Wells. It's also in there, but there's also other resources that you can get in where it's crime reports, and you can get in and more pinpoint your specific location if you'd like to see stuff that's going on. Looking at the ComStat reports, the last couple of weeks has been kind of interesting when I've talked with some of the other community councils, that the numbers it's like a roller coaster. We're ups in some areas, down in others. One of the things looking at it, of course, like a lot of times the theft, larceny stuff seems to always be an issue, always to be up front. The burglaries, the car prowls. I went and spoke with the sergeant over the auto theft and was talking to her about some stuff. And there's several people that they are aware of and they are looking into. Right now, we're just having issues with COVID and jail restrictions and some different stuff. So sometimes it's a little hard, but there is quite a few people that they do have that they're looking at and trying to connect the dots with a lot of that. And that's something that they're looking at for citywide, but also it does, I think, play an effect here. So if you look at like some of the burglary, the larcenies and the motor vehicle theft, some of it is up, and our detectives are aware of that. And that is definitely something they're looking at. One of the things I'm really glad to see is that family assaults are down. It seems to, I mean, just sometimes with stress, sometimes it seems like that's a little bit high. And I just want to point out that we do have, I try to talk about it quite a bit, but we do have resources for that. A couple of the tabs I have pulled up on my computer to remind me is that if you need help, one, feel free to give us a call. We'd be more than happy to come out and do what we can. If you get onto if you go to like SLC PD and then type in like victim advocates, it comes up with victim services, and it comes up with a 24-hour number that if you need to talk to somebody, we have people available that are victim advocates, not necessarily police officer, but they can help out. University of Utah has MCOT. If there's an issue going on, MCOT's available. Reach out to them. And then I do want to point out that we do have a what they call a community connection center, where we have officers that are assigned to work with some of the social workers that are attached to our department, and they're doing a fantastic job going around and contacting a lot of people that are out and about in the streets and trying to offer some of the resources. And so there's quite a bit that we offer, and you can find all this information off of our webpage. That if you get on, just play around, there's community engagement resources and a lot of different numbers, a lot of different resources to help out with the different things. I was going to say, does anyone have any questions for me? I saw something where it said asking about Nextdoor. So Nextdoor, we do not monitor that. Nextdoor is set up as a social media where they don't want Big Brother looking in on stuff. And so occasionally we can post things, but I cannot see any conversations at all. I've had times where people have sent me comments where they'll be talking about a situation, and I'll get just their statement saying there's an issue, but I can't see any of the conversations. And so Nextdoor is an app that's set up for the neighbors to communicate, but it's not something we're able to monitor. If there's an issue, please give us a call. Don't think that you can get onto Nextdoor and report it, because it's not something that we just can't monitor it. And so we need, if there's an issue, we need that call to go into our dispatch so that they can connect it with a case number, and that way we can document and we can track those those issues across the city. Is there anything else? Oh, the non-emergency number. If you have questions, I mean, if you need to get a hold of us, if it's an emergency, 911. If it's a non-emergency and you just need to talk to somebody or report something, you can call 799-3000, and it takes you to a phone tree, and I think it's extension 7 that you can get to our dispatch. So does anybody have any other questions for me?
To keep handy. I wondered if, I saw a question from Amy Hawkins on the chat function. Amy is the chair of the Ballpark Community Council, which is just a little bit to the west of us. Amy, if you wouldn't mind unmuting and maybe just asking that question, is that possible? Or talking a little bit about what's going on in Ballpark and your environment?
Thank you so much, Jason. Thanks for the invitation to join you guys in conversation. I was just confused by, we share Detective King. He's our Community Intelligence Unit officer for both sides of District 5, the East and the West. And I thought I heard Detective King say that family assaults were down. And I was really confused because when I was looking at the most recent CompStat report for District 5, and I put it up there in the chat, I actually saw that family assaults were way up, that for the past 28 days, there have been 8 family assaults in District 5, and the 5-year average is actually 2.8 assaults. And I just find that, I find that alarming, and I think there are lots of us across District 5 who are pretty concerned about an increase in violent crime. And I just wondered if you could speak to that a little bit, or maybe I'm reading the data incorrectly.
Thanks for correcting me on that. I was looking at it, and the bracket shows family, and then it shows the non-assaults, or then it shows the ag assault non-family, and I did get those mixed up. The family, it looks like it is up. It was the non-family that was a little bit down, and so
yeah, it's even. It's just the average. There are nine versus 9.
and so what they do is they take. I was looking at the last 7 days, and you were looking at that last 28 days, and so what they'll do is they'll take the last 7 days and compare it to a 5-year average for the last little bit, and then they'll do the same thing for the 28 days, and so it's kind of one of those things that's a little bit of a roller coaster. But yeah, like you said, I got those switched up, and I apologize. But yeah, the family looks like it's a little up. The non-family, it's a little bit down.
And I just added the link to the CompStat data for Salt Lake City Police Department and a JPEG, a screenshot of the latest District 5 data. It's a lot of numbers, but if you start looking on the left and kind of scrolling around, you'll be able to kind of see a little bit how that works. It is, I think, a useful tool, although they are just numbers, is another way to say it. And we've definitely used it, but we understand that there are limitations in some of those numbers as well. They don't tell always the complete story. So thank you, both Amy and Detective King, for going into that. Are there other questions for Detective King? I don't see any on the chat function as well. So I think we're good. And Detective King, can I maybe just ask you one last question, if that's all right?
Yeah.
We've been hearing in the media that Salt Lake City Police Department is losing officers. Is there any update or information that you can tell us about that? How the personnel is doing, how the recruitment is doing, how the numbers are?
I think it's definitely a unique time with a lot of the things that are going on. A lot of the perception and different events that I think has caused stress, and we have lost officers to other agencies and other places, and then I know that we have some that are in the academy on FTO, and so it's kind of one of those things that we're constantly looking at and dealing with. But yeah, there's it's definitely a unique time, something I haven't seen it's my whole time being here, but yeah, it's a unique time right now.
Okay, sounds like there's a bit of transition going on, perhaps. Okay,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for saying what you could about that. We understand that isn't always, you're not always to share everything that you can, but we appreciate you diving into that a bit. One of the, I think, unique things about ELPCO coming up is that we have a new candidate for the West Emerson position, Bradley Shoup, who's on the call, who's actually an officer with the Salt Lake City Police Department. So we look forward to welcoming Bradley to our team. We'll have a community vote on that in a little bit. It's not official, but I'm glad Bradley's here, and we look forward to his insight joining the ELPCO board. Okay, next up, we have Council Member Darren Mono from the 5th District on Salt Lake City Council. Darren, if you don't mind giving us your take from what's going on at City Hall and with the city. There's a lot these days.
Yeah, there's actually not that much going on at City Hall, or if there is, I wouldn't know because I haven't been for months. But you asked a few things. I'll briefly touch on the windstorm. I assume Tim will talk about that later on in the agenda, so I won't say too much. But the city will be collecting, typically after wind events like this, the city only collects city trees. But in this case, we decided we just need to collect any debris that's there. But is the residents expected to take their debris out to the curb by this weekend, and it'll take several weeks probably to get through the entire city and pick that up. But if you do have tree debris on your own private property, whether it's a city tree or not, feel free to bring that out to the street. The landfill is also still accepting drop-offs for no cost right now. And let's see, there was one other thing. You talked about the city moving to yellow. The city has moved to yellow. I think everyone's probably paying attention to the COVID numbers that have continued to go up, and we've seen the worst numbers that we've seen. I haven't heard any talk about moving back to orange. However, the mask mandate still is in place that the Salt Lake County put on. That goes through January 5th, I believe. The other thing that Jason, you had asked me to talk about were some of the large-scale transportation and housing master plans that the city is initiating right now. And the two specifically are the streets typologies and the affordable housing overlay. Both of those are, I think, really large-scale, like you said, and city-wide initiatives. The street typologies is just about to be something it's hasn't been at council's court yet, but it's about to get there. Basically, this transportation division has created 15 sort of ideal street typologies and signed every street within the city typology. And that currently it's based on the current land use designations, or the zoning of the property on either side of the street. Is how they determine which typology to place. It has a lot of, the goal is to make it more pedestrian and bike friendly and less only auto oriented streets. So I think those are really good. There's a lot of difference. One thing I was noticing is that we have these really, really wide streets in Salt Lake City, and a lot of the street typologies are saying that the ideal right-of-way width for X typology is 50 feet, but we have 130 feet in a lot of our streets. So that's one thing that I think needs to be considered, is what happens when we have an extra 40 or 80 feet right of way. But that's not a master plan. It's not time driven, and there's no funding source identified for that. It's just a typology guide. So one thing that I think maybe hasn't been messaged well is that just because your street says it's identified as a certain typology, that doesn't mean that you're going to see that change on the ground anytime soon. To implement all of the typologies at our current funding rate would take over 100 years. So don't look at it as something that you expect you'll see on your street really soon. I think that's one thing that maybe hasn't been messaged very well. So just take what you see with a grain of salt. The other one that you mentioned was the affordable housing overlay. I think everybody knows housing affordability is something that's incredibly important and a really big problem within the city. A lot of people that work in the city can't afford to live in the city, and housing continues to go up, both rent and purchase prices. This is an initiative that would, and what we see also, I think, sort of in hand with that, is that we see a lot of pressure from developers to upzone properties throughout the city. And this is something that we're going to continue to see pressure for that. What the affordable housing overlay does is it gives a mechanism to build additional density without changing the zoning. There's affordable housing connected to that. So that does have and it's not like you can build a 70-foot tall housing complex anywhere in the city. It's based on the current zoning, and it gives you a little bit of relief from the zoning if you include affordable housing. So I think there's sort of the carrot and the stick approach to affordable housing, and this is sort of an incentive to allow developers to build a little bit of added density if it's affordable housing, rather than right now rezone requests come through and it's only for like, even if we approve them, there's no guarantee that we're going to get any affordability with that. So those are sort of neither of those are quite at the council's court yet. They're still being community input is in the administration, and so once that gets there, we don't know exactly what it'll look like when it gets to the council for us to debate. I think I'll leave it at that and open up for any questions.
It looks like we do have questions. Looks like Nathan Florence has, I think he might actually, there's a couple. I'm sorry, I'm just looking back. Let's go to Nathan and then Shoshana. Nathan, do you want to unmute yourself and go ahead?
Thanks, Jason, and thanks, Darren. Thanks for coming to the meeting and checking in. I appreciate that, and I think that the transportation, the streets overview thing is really fascinating. I think, of course, with the history of our wide streets in Salt Lake. There's a survey about that, and some of it is a little bit complicated because it asks you to sort of gives you sort of the opportunity to put input on streets that that aren't where you are, and then you have to go through and answer all these questions. And so I haven't taken the time to do all of that yet, but I want to thank you also for coming to meet with us and to look at some of that pressure that you were just talking about, that pressure to upzone from developers. And, I posed a couple of questions to you about that. I'm curious about how that relates to the streets view initiative also, because as you talked about when you were here with us, there is some complicated and maybe outdated zoning in the city that makes some of this really hard. And I wanted to sort of bring up this idea that I'd asked you about, and you may not be able to respond to this question yet, but I think as as homeowners, the way that we go into investing long-term into a neighborhood and into a community, really we almost enter into this contract as we understand it with the city of we're investing, in our future in a way that we understand the city will also honor that contract. And so it's a little bit hard to see a developer come in and not have to be thinking in quite the same way, but to go in with saying, oh, I'm going to buy this property but instead of thinking about it the way we would as homeowners, I'm going to buy this property knowing that this is what I'm going to use it for, but buying the property with the assumption that they can then use influence or I don't know exactly how the affordable housing thing will operate, but that they could use exert pressure to sort of get something upzoned, over the opposition of a neighborhood. And as you said, it's, I don't remember. I thought you didn't necessarily agree with, that neighborhoods would be able to have that much influence over their, or control.
Yeah, do you want me to jump in? I think I can respond to some of those points.
Yeah, I'd love it. I'd love it. Thanks. Sorry, I'm sort of rambling, but I do want to let you talk. You're the.
Yeah, I think it's a valid point. It's something I've been thinking a lot about since our meeting on your street with you, talking about a proposal that's a couple of houses down from you. It's something I've been thinking a lot about citywide. I don't believe that the city's only responsibility is to private homeowners. I think the city's responsibility is to implement the city's citywide goals, one of which is increasing the housing stock and increasing affordable housing and increasing just the number of units in general.
Of course.
So I think that there's a balance there. I also, zoning is not, I don't think it's ever been considered a contract with surrounding property owners. Zoning is always has and always will be something that changes from time to time.
Yeah, I think I'm using that more as like a way of thinking about it. Like not that we've signed a contract, but you know, you kind of go into something with the thinking that like, oh, I understand. You know, you sort of say, oh, okay, this is going to be this kind of space or neighborhood, right?
Yeah, I hear that. I don't believe that cities are static. I believe cities change and grow. And I mean, most of you probably know my professions. I'm an architect and I've studied urban design and urban planning. And I've taught courses at the University of Utah on urban planning. So I fundamentally believe cities change and cities grow, and it's the responsibility of urban planners and responsible developers and the city council to make sure that that growth happens in a responsible way. So I haven't made a decision on that one. I haven't talked to any of my colleagues to know where they're at on it either. So I don't know exactly where that specific property will go, but I definitely, when I look at a land use application, I balance the private property values against the citywide goals. And sometimes those are not, you can't come to the same conclusion if you're only looking at one of those things. So
yeah, so I'd like to just kind of make
Nathan, can we hold on that? Is that all right?
Yeah,
just because we want to move on with the agenda, and we've got
Jason,
a couple folks in line.
Jason,
so.
Absolutely right. Go take it to the next thing, and this is an ongoing conversation. So thank you.
I will post several links about the telegraph exchange lofts in the chat function. That's the project that Nathan and Darren were talking about. It's an issue that ELPCO has been working on for several months, and we'll be coming up to the city council, I think, in October, from what I saw.
Perfect. Thank you. I wasn't watching the clock as you are, so thanks for moving us forward.
No worries. Let's move on to Rochelle Hobbs, who is the Salt Lake County Recorder. And I know Rochelle.
Jason, can I spend just less than a minute mentioning some things for Darren that are important?
Can I ask who this is?
George Chapman.
George, we got to move on, George. You have a lot of conversations with Darren, and let's move that offline. We want to move on with some other topics to get through. Is that okay? We could even schedule a separate meeting about telegraph exchange.
No, that's not okay.
Daryl, Rochelle is waiting to begin. I think we should, or I'm sorry, not Daryl. George, we should move on. Okay. Rochelle, are you ready to take control?
I'm here. Yes, I'll share my screen and I'll keep it brief because you guys have a lot to discuss. Thank you for letting me be here. Let me just get can you guys see my screen?
I can.
Can you guys
everybody else?
Okay, wonderful.
We can.
Thank you for y'all. So my name is Rochelle Hobbs. I'm your Salt Lake County Recorder. I would like to thank the East Liberty Park Community Organization for inviting me here this evening. I'll try to keep it short. I know you have a packed agenda. A lot of people ask what the County Recorder's Office does. We record every transaction that has to do with real property. We maintain a database of over 14 million documents. And for the property record to be accurate and complete, we have to record, abstract, index, and plat all of the documents. We have experienced unprecedented times as our office responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite the challenges encountered, the Recorder's Office has continued our critical services to the public. We've remained open since the onset of this virus in March. And we have an on-site crew that's been here the whole time, including me, and you can see us all there wearing our masks and maintaining our social distance. The recorder's office has seen an average of increase in documents of 40% in the first half of the year and an increase of 44.1% to date. So we're busy. In 2019, we worked to ensure both collaborative relationships with our fellow recorders across the state and our fellow elected officials to ensure best practices are implemented and that the customer service we provide is outstanding. We met with many of the major title companies one-on-one to ensure our office is providing the services necessary for them to carry out their business. And we've stayed open and stayed safe so we can keep our employees employed and serve our constituents. Community outreach and service is very important to me. We visited all of the 16 Salt Lake County senior centers and offered them copies of their complete property records. We were able to look up thousands of records, and we were able to serve hundreds of individuals by bringing our office and expertise to them. I'm looking forward to a day where we can do this again. In recent months, our homes have taken on the added role of office, classrooms, and a refuge from the virus. One thing remains the same, and that is the American dream of home ownership. To protect your title to your home, we have launched a new free service called Property Watch. This service notifies Salt Lake County property owners when something is recorded on their property. I believe this is a great resource that will help prevent title fraud while protecting your title and offers peace of mind, which is something I think we all could use a little more of right now. We currently have over 8,400 registrants, and we are hoping to see this number increase. And this is our website address. Oops, I went too fast on that. We have our website address included there. Or no, I'm seeing it, you're not. If you Google Salt Lake County Recorder, I can put it in the chat. You click on it, and it's really easy. If you look at number 1, it asks for your Salt Lake County address. Number 2, your Property Watch contact information that will just be used exclusively for that. And then once you enter 1 and 2, your parcel number will be automatically populated, and then you hit apply right there. So it's that easy. And then going forward, anything recorded on your property, you'll be notified of. As I mentioned before, as of this morning, we have 8,400 subscribers, with Salt Lake City making up 1,433 so far. And here's some of the positive feedback we've received since launching Property Watch. It's powerful, it's useful, allows family to watch the status of elderly, vulnerable people for protection of their property. It's easy for the public to track new recordings on their property. And it gives you the opportunity for a quicker response time, and it makes it so there's no surprises. If you're selling your home, that's certainly not an ideal time to find out there's a lien or something on your property record that you were unaware of. So that's good. Thank you again for this opportunity to be here with you this evening. We found this historic image that I wanted to share with everyone. This is the Isaac Chase Mill from 1852, and it is the oldest standing commercial building in the state of Utah. And I'm sure many of you have seen it because it stands as a historic monument in Liberty Park. So with that, I'll end. I know you guys are very busy, so if you have time for questions, that'd be great. If you don't and you need me to keep it moving, I understand.
Rochelle, this is Jason. I can start off with one quick question. And that
Sure.
is just to clarify, property owners have to actively sign up for the Property Watch service. Is that correct?
Yes, so if you want to subscribe to Property Watch, we need you to subscribe. Now, we have had people who have called and had needed some assistance over the phone. Elderly people, you know, maybe they don't have access to the internet or something like that. So we're more than happy to assist people once they give us the right information, and you can register your people too, so.
And you can only register your own property, presumably, is that right?
No, you can register grandma or grandpa's. What Property Watch does is it offers you public information. So we don't offer anything with Property Watch that you would not receive were you to request it in person. So you can request to be monitoring grandma, grandpa, or mom and dad's properties. There are things that we are doing on the back end to monitor that, to see if somebody has a lot of parcels that they're monitoring. So there's things that we're doing on the back end. But all of the information that is provided by Property Watch is public information.
Got it.
Did that answer your question?
That answers it very well. Are there other questions for Rochelle Hobbs, the Salt Lake County Recorder?
Not a question, Rochelle, but just a comment, a compliment to your staff on your website, both on the content and the ease of navigation. for searching. It's very well done.
Thank you. You know, I think that, thank you so much. I'm going to let Barbie know that. I think that speaks to the importance of having people that actually have touched the work and understand the work developing. So Barbie's been here for 25 plus years, and she's the one who we collaborated in Property Watch, but she put together the online free tool, and we worked together on that. So thank you. I will let Barbie know that. We created Property Watch internally at no cost to taxpayers, which I am very proud of. So Barbie saved us, the county, a lot of money in doing so. And I think you get a better outcome because somebody designs it who actually touches and understands the work. So thank you for that. I'll let her know that. I appreciate that.
And Rochelle, we did have one question from Amy Hawkins on the chat. She's
Yes.
asking if you can sign up to get the same records on abandoned properties, boarded up properties.
Yes. If there's a parcel number, that we should be able to give you information on that.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Other questions for Rochelle?
Hey, just while I have you, if you could share this on any of your social media or newsletters or website, a link to our website, and let them know what it does for them. It's peace of mind. There are third-party vendors out there that charge people $95 a year or a monthly subscription fee. It's called title fraud. And this is exactly what Property Watch does, but I would argue even better because the person who designed it actually understands what it's supposed to do. And it's free, and you can't beat that. So
It's kind of like those free annual credit reports, right? You can sign up for services that will do it for money, or you can just get your 3 free credit reports a year from the freecreditreport.com.
Also too, that free, with the word free coming up, if somebody needs their property record, we are working with individuals and has since this pandemic hit. So there's a link on my website to click on to request a free copy of your property record. And then I instructed my staff as of March when this pandemic hit that if anyone calls and wants a copy of their property record, send it to them by email or shoot it to them in the mail, whichever is easiest, because like power companies and landlords, we want to work with people right now and make it easy for them. So we've been doing that as well. And I've got a great team. So appreciate the time. And if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. And then I'll hop off because I know you guys are really busy. And thanks for all you do for your community as well. Thank you.
There's one more question from Shoshana. Does that include a plot plan? Is that, I'm not sure what a plot plan is. Yeah.
Do you mean plat?
That might be it, PLAT, right?
Yeah.
So is it just basically for any liens or sort of access to the property, or is it possible to get actual diagrams and things like that from your office, or does that come from the assessor's office?
So you can get a plat map from our office. We typically charge $5 for those. And so for Property Watch, that's for anything that's being recorded on your property. For a plat map, she could just send me an email of what she wants, and then we can email it to her. Do you want to share my email? I can do that in the chat. You know what? We're going to share my email right now in the chat and have her email me, and we can get her the plat that she wants.
That's great. Thank you. I did put up the recorder website in the chat as well.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. And then I'll include my email right now, and she can email me.
Great.
Thank you. We just posted it. Thanks so much for your time and all you do for your community.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We now will move from the county to the city. And next up is Kristen Riker from Salt Lake City Public Lands and Parks, or is it Parks and Public Lands? I always mix it up.
You know what? We just shortened it to Public Lands.
Oh, hey, just cover it all.
Yeah.
Great. You'll be talking to us about the new master plan, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Thanks, Jason. I'm really excited to be here tonight. Thanks everyone for showing up. I'm here to introduce the Salt Lake City's planning process for the new master plan. You may have seen, if you've been in any of our parks lately, some signs or even some stencils on the ground that say Reimagine Nature. That's the name for our new master planning process. It's a call to action to take Salt Lake City's online survey. Tonight, I'd just like to take a few minutes to share the background of the project and then invite you to get online to review the materials and hopefully participate in the survey. I have a short presentation, and then afterwards, if we have time, I'm happy to take questions. Just as a little background, master plans for parks are typically created somewhere around every 20 years, and ideally they're updated every 10 years. The city created an open space plan in 1992 and a Parks Recovery Action Plan, which was really an update in 2001. So we're super overdue for a master plan right now. And you know, with all the recent events with COVID happening, I feel like we've all been made acutely aware of the importance of our parks and green space around us, making us realize our parks and our trails and our natural lands and even urban forestry have a real impact on our quality of life and how important they are. So we're looking to the community now to help all of us define what parks, trails, and natural lands and urban forestry should be in the future. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. All right. That work?
Yep, works fine.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so welcome to Reimagine Nature. That's our tagline for the master plan. Salt Lake City's Public Lands is collaborating with a consultant called Design Workshop on a citywide master plan. So this is for all the parks and the trails within Salt Lake City limits. This presentation and materials on the website provide a foundation of information for the public to reimagine the future of our public lands, the nature in our city that enhances the quality of everyday life. All right, see if I can, there we go. Okay, so Reimagine Nature encompasses the public lands, which is our three divisions: natural lands, city parks, and urban forestry. We're hoping that this master plan will provide an inspirational framework for and a guide for how we prioritize our investments in the future for the next 10 to 20 years. This is a citywide plan, and it's really a rare opportunity to establish big ideas and long-range goals and transformative projects for our public lands. Given the goals of this master plan, it has been given the name Reimagine Nature. This will use comprehensive evidence-based analysis coupled with community engagement to prioritize and identify transformative projects for Salt Lake City's public lands. So what's the current state of our public lands? The 2019 Salt Lake City Parks and Public Lands Needs Assessment is the foundational study for the needs assessment or for the master plan. The needs assessment provided measurement of the quantity and quality of our existing parks and natural lands and included a public survey. The study helps identify public lands needs, opportunities, and challenges. As the city continues to grow, acquiring land and adequate funding becomes more challenging. So this map shows the extent of the public land system and the master plan study area. Trails and natural lands include over 70 miles of existing trails, indicated as solid yellow lines, and 129 miles of proposed trails, which are indicated as dashed yellow lines. The division also provides 1,694 acres of natural lands and 6,423 acres of foothill natural area in a collaborative management zone, indicated through the red color hatches. So the Parks Division manages 735 acres of parks, indicated in teal blue, and include a variety of outdoor spaces we have 42 mini parks, 19 neighborhood parks, 15 community parks, 2 regional parks, a regional athletic complex with 16 outdoor sports fields, 3 special event parks, and the 121-acre city cemetery. And I give you all those details just so that you understand the vastness of our divisions and how much we have here. The master plan effort will look for our synergies between all these public lands, city-owned green spaces, including the golf course. And urban forestry cares for 86,500 public trees that are highlighted in olive in green on the map. And I'm sure many of you are aware that we lost a whole lot of trees in the city in the last 3 weeks, September 7th and 8th. And We don't have a full count at this time, somewhere around 1,500 trees that we lost and 3,000 damaged. And we're still just trying to get the debris out of the parks and off of park strips. And then once that happens, we'll come back in and remove some of those stumps. Okay, so why a master plan? I think the city residents have really shown their appreciation for Salt Lake City's trails and natural areas since COVID-19 has hit. Now more than ever, people are using our parks and our trails and our natural lands. And I think people are really starting to understand how these places are so important to our communities and our personal health and our neighborhood identity and what our civic ideals are. As the needs assessment found, there's real opportunity to address parks and natural lands as essential elements for better air quality, climate change, mitigation, energy efficiency, and environmental justice. Reimagine Nature will identify specific, meaningful projects and initiatives that align with public lands values, stewardship, livability, and equity. So I want to just touch just really briefly on these transformative projects. We're asking the community to help us understand what can make Salt Lake City a better place as we grow. And we will try to come up with some ideas for what transformative projects we can implement. And that might be a process for how we improve neighborhood parks. It might be how to make the Jordan River more of a destination. I mean, sky's the limit. We're asking you for your ideas on how can we make Salt Lake City a really cool place to live and to work. So we have three specific and meaningful initiatives: stewardship, livability, and equity. Those are our guiding values for the master plan. The three values will guide how we can reimagine our nature to increase biodiversity, the richness of different kinds of plants and animals in our public lands, while finding new ways to connect people to natural places. So the first one is equity. And equity really begins with listening. And in these times, I think this is super important. It includes diverse voices in the master plan process and priorities. We're trying to cast a real wide net to amplify our engagement efforts by working with the University of Utah and their community planning department. We're working with Eva Garcia and her students to do some micro engagements throughout the city and really to make sure that we hear every area throughout the city. So as a growing city of over 196,000 people who speak over 80 languages, Salt Lake City reflects really a diversity of ages, gender, and race. The 2019 needs assessment identified gaps and barriers in public lands. As the city grows and affordability is challenged, income barriers can limit the amount of leisure time and transportation options people have to enjoy our public lands. We are committed to listening to the realities and perceptions of access to public lands from all sides of Salt Lake City. To that end, Reimagine Nature master plan process includes 3 windows of engagement, which I'll go over in a minute. As we kick off the first window, over 200 community groups have been invited to participate. And we really are going to need your help to spread the word about this opportunity to provide input for the future for our public lands and weigh in on what equitable access to public lands means to you. And there's 3 of these pages. This was the first one of equity. And these can be found on our webpage. They're intended to educate the public about what we've found so far from our needs assessment and just to highlight these values. So the second one is livability, or maintaining Salt Lake City's quality of outdoor life. It inspires us to provide more services to residents as our city grows. With over 30,000 more people anticipated to move to Salt Lake City by 2040, we would need to acquire 94 more acres of city parks, which is roughly the equivalent of adding another Liberty Park in order to maintain the same level of service. So we're growing really fast. And when we did our needs assessment, most people said, yeah, we're totally happy with the service that we have at Salt Lake City, invest back into the parks, spend your money there. That's what they said. But I think sometimes people don't realize that as our city is growing, we have to look to the future to expand our park system so that we can make sure we still have the same amount of access to green space as we get bigger. With 30,000 more people, that is now, so this was done in 2017-18, that estimate has grown since then, and we're growing a lot faster than we had anticipated. Okay. So stewardship is our third and final value, which is taking care of what we have. It's investing in the renewal of our existing city parks, urban forests, natural areas, and trails. With 63% of public land assets in fair or poor condition, public respondents to the needs assessment survey supported investing in improvements to existing parks, trails, and natural lands. Stewardship also inspires us to preserve habitat, so plants and wildlife can thrive and be resilient to impacts of climate change, like our rising temperatures. As global trends of biodiversity loss intersect with local trends, including a decline in the number of urban trees over the last 20 years, stewardship expands to local and global efforts that can help mitigate big issues like poor air quality. For example, potential actions could be planting 300 new trees in city golf courses or adding butterfly gardens to city parks. We're super excited. The mayor has her 1,000 tree initiative, and she's also kicking off a Retree Salt Lake City campaign to help us fund the trees that we lost through this windstorm. So how can you be involved? There are 3 windows of community engagement in this 12 to 18 month master plan process, woven with periods of reflection and technical analysis. So we're in month 4 right now. We started the public engagement in August of 2020. Window 1 is focused on discovery and building a foundation of understanding with the community. So we educate you, you educate us. In the first quarter of 2021, Window 2 is focused on testing visionary transformational projects with the community. So if you take this survey, we'll ask you for your email, and then we'll keep you updated, and you can help us create this framework for transformational projects. And then later in 2021, Window 3 is the final phase of work to affirm the draft master plan with the community before final adoption with City Council. So each window will include a variety of ways to be informed on content development and provide feedback and ideas to the planning team. So my last slide here is Reimagine Nature, and this is our website. So we have 2 asks for this group. We'd love for East Liberty Park Community Council to share this information on your social media channels and to really encourage all the people that are our members and constituents to take our survey. And then like Rochelle asked, we're also asking for you to share on your social media this webpage and to encourage people of Salt Lake City to take our survey. I just want to express how important it is. You can make a huge difference. This is a once in a generation opportunity to really make an impact to help shape what Salt Lake City will look like in the future. So I will see if I can figure out how to stop sharing here. And if Jason would like, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Kristen, appreciate that. Just a couple quick points. It's interesting, when the windstorm happened and Liberty Park was closed, all of a sudden that became an issue. Like, I was going to take my kids there, and we're like, oh no, we can't go there. We can't go to other parks. You almost like losing your electricity losing your parks, you could all of a sudden see what kind of an impact that could have on your life in Salt Lake City. So that became very apparent how important these parks are. And I appreciate that very complete presentation. I'll place the link to the master plan in the chat function, but if I can just summarize one question, and that is, during your outreach to the community, are you also reaching out to individuals who are homeless and the service providers who work with them?
Yeah, so we have, we've been doing pop-up events throughout the whole city. I think, trying to remember how many, I think there's 40 pop-up events, and basically, I think 10 of those pop-up events included ice cream. And so if somebody took our survey, they got a shake from this ice cream shack. And we did get quite a few homeless folks that were interested in a shake. So they went ahead and took the survey. And that's how we have tried to get a real diverse group of people, including homeless folks, and also just people that are using the parks specifically to take the survey.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. One other question that we got from, I believe it was Judy, asked, let me think here. Judy,
Yeah.
you asked, could you go ahead and ask that question?
Now, what's the difference between open space and public lands?
So open space generally is a natural land, and sometimes open space is developed into a publicly accessible park that is natural. And whereas public lands includes a lot of different green spaces. So public lands includes our cemetery, it includes the model airplane port, it includes the regional athletic complex, Liberty Park, includes Washington Square, Library Square. So public lands is public green space, whereas open space is really more of a zoning designation. And we a lot of times refer to natural lands as open space, but it's more of a zoning designation than anything. And public lands is a zoning designation also.
Right, but it sounds like it's a more built environment than open space.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Other questions for Kristen?
Kristen.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, go ahead.
Sure, go ahead. Phone number 07071? Sounds like James Bond.
Yeah, George. When will the restrooms be open, and is there a big tree with roots that can temporarily be placed on the roundabout until we figure out what kind of art we want there?
I'll let you pick that one up, George.
So we, when we turned to yellow, we had intended to open actually all the restrooms, even though we usually close them in mid-October. And then, and that happened in early September, and then September 7th and 8th, we had the windstorm. And seriously, all of our staff have been super busy with dealing with the downed trees. And so we have been opening restrooms as we can, in particular if we have league play or reservations in Park Pavilion. I believe there are 24 restrooms throughout the city that are available. Only 5 of them are permanent restrooms. The rest of them are portable right now. And we added some more portable restrooms just because we just couldn't get to everything. We're so tapped out. And as far as the big tree in the roundabout, you know, we've actually had some really interesting requests to keep certain really large trees, in particular the one in Liberty Park that's had so much media coverage. And can we make it into a totem pole, or can we make it into a podium for the mayor? And so we're certainly happy to do any of that, but it would take some really big equipment and some funding to move something like that. And if anybody is interested, I am happy to give you my email address, and you can we can talk more about what that could look like, because moving those things is extremely difficult. The only group really that can move those, unless we go with a private contractor, is the National Guard. They helped us move some of those big trunks, but we don't have the capacity with the equipment that we have. The loaders and the trucks are just not capable of moving that much tonnage.
Got it. Okay. I think we did have, oh, okay. Shoshana had a question about where the extra land would come from. You mentioned that based on projections of city population, we would need another Liberty Park in the next, was it 20 or 30 years? I presume it would not be just one Liberty Park, but it'd be a bunch of different parcels. Where does Salt Lake City Public Lands get their land? And where do you see that expansion happening?
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of requests for a Liberty Park on the west side. And so we would look probably on the west side for another regional park. There's a lot of different city-owned properties that that could contribute to our park infrastructure. We have, there's different places, and each community needs to weigh in and let us know what interests they have in a park in their community. There are, if you drive around the city, there are some open spaces. I don't really want to pinpoint any one spot, but there's definitely still some open land out there. There's some abandoned buildings. There's an abandoned water park. There are some spaces that could be more developed into park space throughout the city.
Gotcha. And maybe one reason why you can't be specific is because if you said, hey, the city's going to go buy this land, it would immediately drive up the value of that land.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. City has a lot of money. People know that. Well, not a lot, but
I wish.
The potential. One other quick question I had was impact fees from developments. Does Salt Lake City Public Lands get access to that money to help put in parks and infrastructure?
Yeah, absolutely we do. And we're really good at spending it too. Yeah, we get impact fees every year, and we present projects to the city council, usually on an annual basis. Last year it didn't happen for a number of reasons, but and the public can also put in constituent applications for the spending of that funding. That funding can only be used to provide new services to a community, to Salt Lake City. So it needs to add service or provide a new service to the city. So park acquisition, or a new playground, or lighting that extends the play on a field. All those kind of things would add service to the public. And I hope that East Liberty Park Community Council will consider putting in a community application if they didn't last year. If you did last year, I'm hoping that those can be revisited this year. So.
Great. A question from Daryl.
Kristen, ELPCO has a long history of loving trees, and we created the initiative that put the trees down the middle of 7th East from 9th South to 13th South.
I love those.
Our community council decided that we wanted to make a donation along with resident donations. How would we go about that to replant trees at Liberty or other places in the city?
Yeah, like I said, the mayor just today, I don't even know if it's been announced or not. If she just did a press release today for Retree SLC, and maybe Tim's going to talk about that. I don't know, hopefully, but I can get the it's through Tree Utah. They are accepting the donations, and we can put the link to that in the chat file for you.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Other questions for Kristen? I think there was a question about planting the new trees, about whether or not they'll have deep roots and be native. Is that sort of what you're looking at in terms of some of the replantings?
Well, we like to plant a variety of trees in Salt Lake City. And the reason that we plant a variety and not all of one kind of tree is so that if there is some kind of a bug or fungus, they don't all die at once. Most trees do not have a super deep root system. Part of the reason why a lot of the trees went down is because they are in narrow park strips, or they were just unhealthy trees or not pruned well. And you'll find that a lot of the trees that did fall were right next to a road or a sidewalk, and the wind just pushed them and their roots grew laterally along the green space rather than like in a circle all around the trees to hold them upright. And so in those areas, we will probably be planting some smaller trees. And yes, we love native trees to Utah. And of course, we'll be planting native trees to Utah.
Great. Thank you for answering that. And I guess when they fall laterally, that means they fall across the road or onto someone's house. So that's the side effect of that.
Yeah.
There's no more questions for Kristen. I think we have covered a lot of it. People really appreciate what you've done. And as I mentioned, I posted the link to the master plan in the chat. We'll definitely be publicizing that more in our newsletter and on Facebook. So thank you, Kristen, for being here. Next up on the agenda, we've got a couple more items to fill. I want to bring up the kind of moving from nature to art. We're just so liberal artsy here at ELPCO. But we have a chance to put public art at the 900 South Roundabout. And that is kind of a generational chance that we have to put some public art, a big installation, couple $100,000 investment at the new roundabout at the intersection of 900 South and 11th East. As you might know, there was already initial process to try to do that. And in June, the Art Design Board for Salt Lake City voted not to approve any of those three finalists. I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. Actually, maybe let me actually just move ahead and I'll get to the main agenda, which is that we now have a survey out. And this is a survey that community members can participate in and get their feedback to the artists. Now, they're not going to let us actually decide what the art is. They leave that up to the artists, and actually, based on my third grade art class, that's a really good idea. But they do want to know what we think about 9th and 9th, so that artists who maybe don't live in our neighborhood are able to get some more input and figure out what we're doing and what we want for our neighborhood. So that survey is now live. We've got over 60 responses. It just takes a couple minutes to complete. But this is a chance for us to actually have some direct impact that will go directly to the artists who are creating the designs for this new public art project. Questions about lighting, questions about what 9th and 9th means to you, questions about, do you want it to have sort of be changing every couple of years, have kind of an iterative or a dynamic process. So please do check out that survey. I'll place the link into the chat. You can also find it on the ELPCO Facebook page, and we'll publish it in our next couple of newsletters as well. So that is the 900 South Roundabout Public Art Survey, which ELPCO developed along with Salt Lake Public Art, which was a nice collaboration that we've been having there. Any questions about that? No? Okay. Look forward to getting at least a couple hundred responses, I hope. Next up, we have Tim Cosgrove from the Salt Lake City Mayor's Office. Tim, I saw you on here earlier. Do you mind going right ahead?
Did we skip the 9th South 9-line project update?
They had to postpone. Yeah. Oh. I have a revised agenda where I've taken that off, but yeah, they had to postpone until they have a couple more community meetings. That's continuing the 9th South reconstruction all the way down basically through Central 9th and into the west side of Salt Lake. We're going to be participating in that project. Probably come back in October or November. But thanks, Daryl. Yep. Tim, you're up next.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks for having me. I do want to thank Kristen Riker for doing an excellent presentation. She's got to be exhausted. She's been working her tail end off, burning the candle at both ends. It's really nice having her as an expert in our department and having her expertise when I can call her and lean on her for all of these questions that you guys ask as well. But my hat is off to her for spending all these long hours cleaning up our parks and then coming to a community council and presenting after working a full day and it going on for weeks. So thank you, Kristen. Also wanted to thank Darren, Council Member Darren Mano, for his support in the community. He touched on the cleanup of the debris. That's going well. We're entering phase 2. We picked up phase 1, which is primarily the city trees. The mayor has asked, as well as public utilities, to reach out to the community for your help, for your assistance with the cleanup of the storm drains. One of the things that we're really worried about is if we were to have a rainstorm and all of those leaves and that debris clogs up the storm drains, and next thing you know, we have the next crisis, the next a flood, and we don't want that to happen. I am going to add a link to Department of Sustainability. They've offered brown collection garbage cans as well as compost cans that you can assist with that cleanup. The mayor's also asked to please put the debris on the parking strip and not down on the gutters. That helps to allow our teams to go through, our public services when they go through, and Department of Sustainability to clean that up and not have it collected in the storm drain itself. Kristen had talked about the mayor's new effort. Everybody knows our mayor loves trees. She had this on her platform before she got elected to office. She wanted to plant 1,000 trees. Kristen mentioned that we lost over 1,500 public trees. I know it's estimated we lost another 1,500 private trees as well. There's over 3,000 trees lost. When I talked with Tony Gliot from our urban forestry, we had lost over 69 trees in Liberty Park alone, and over 255 trees in our Salt Lake City Cemetery alone. So it's just devastating. To that end, the mayor has worked with a group called Tree Utah and Rocky Mountain Power to create another initiative called Retree Salt Lake City. And with that effort, we're kicking it off October 1st to plant 255 trees over on the west side. But Rocky Mountain Power has agreed to donate $10,000 if we match it with $10,000. So that was a good question that Daryl asked, and that those funds help us not to just plant the trees, but in the maintenance for hopefully years to come as that fund is created and built up. And I will put those links on the site as well. The other thing I wanted to touch on, when I was working with our mayor's liaisons and urban forestry department, they had a great idea, and they're sending it out to you, our community council, asking for your support in helping to create an urban forestry subcommittee. Many of you know that the urban forest that we have within the city is so critical for everything from clean air to water conservation and cleanliness, but they have a map of the entire city and where every public tree is planted, where every public tree is located. And so they map this. But with this new effort to replant and grow trees throughout Salt Lake City, they're asking for your help, because you know your community, you know your neighborhoods even better, with the planting of those community trees. And if you were able to create an urban forestry subcommittee, that would go a long way in assisting the city with their efforts in doing that. But it would build a support system that cares for the trees, for the community, your eyes on the ground, ears in the air. When you hear a tree in trouble, when you see a tree in trouble, you can relate that. You can spot that and identify it. And so that's a work in progress, and it will come as it's developed within the local community councils, and then go on to continue to build Mayor Mendenhall's 1,000 tree initiative. Are there any questions on that? No
Doesn't look like we have any questions on that.
Okay.
Were there some other things you wanted to cover?
Yeah, there was, I wanted to give you an update. I'm trying to get this link to attach that I can send so people can get their containers. So I wanted to give an update. Salt Lake City's been working with Salt Lake County, or well, it's called Salt Lake Valley Coalition to End Homelessness, and they put together a broader based coalition this year. So it's not just Salt Lake City taking it all on for the winter overflow shelter for this winter, and helping to identify those resources that will be impacted by persons experiencing homelessness and the vulnerability that they experience, especially over the winter time. It was deemed the Sugar House temporary shelter just isn't conducive. It was determined that with COVID, it's not enough space, or the layout just doesn't work to keep people safe from COVID during this time. So the stakeholders that have put this coalition together includes the Council of Governments, real estate professionals. There were other municipal and city leaders, faith-based leaders from the private sector, to assist in trying to identify what that looks like and what those processes and procedures would be, and then how to set that system up. They're looking at continuing St. Vincent's as part of the winter overflow shelter, utilizing hotel vouchers, requiring some of the long-term funding that the city council gave to us. Thanks, Councilmember Mano, with what's called the Stay at Home, Stay Safe Hotel. And they were able to put in, I think it was 130 men and women that are over 60 years of age at that facility. So there's some ongoing efforts to address that. I just wanted to touch base briefly. I can try to answer any other questions on that, or homelessness, or anything else.
I got a quick question, Tim. Do you know when the announcement about the location of the winter shelter will be made? A ballpark figure of November, December, or earlier?
Well, they're counting on having an overflow shelter set up by October 15th.
Okay.
I was hoping to have that information now, quite frankly, ahead of time. So I'm thinking any day, any time. They haven't given me a specific date or a timeline.
And just to
Except
clarify,
for the October 15th date, sorry.
October 15th, which would be quite a bit earlier than I think it was done last year. So trying to kind of get ahead of it, I think. Yeah.
Correct.
The mayor is involved in phase 1 of her homeless camp abatement process right now, which is basically kind of doing spot cleanings, but not closing the camps. Do you know when the phase 2, which would involve closing the camps, will start? And are there any things that need to stand up before that phase 2 happens logistically?
Thank you. So what is critical is having that overflow space up and running. That's critical in having that before we can move through. The partnership that was put together with Salt Lake County Health Department in abating these camps, they give 48 hours notice to persons that are living in them. They have a rule that they can operate under the state's authority to provide for that public health and safety, that they go in and clean them for bio waste and for garbage. And it's been even more critical because of the COVID. We've had limits on the size of the camps and encampments that they can have together at one time. So that's part of the reason also why Salt Lake County Health Department is monitoring this very closely. So the 12-week first part of the phase one, and thanks again to the City Council for providing some funding for a contract with Advantage Services so that we can go out and clean those locations. But it's with the partnership of the County Health Department that we're able to extend that service now, broader, bigger, better, and prioritize. They do a weekly check-in and they prioritize those encampments where they then go through and clean them up. I think that answered the first part. The second part, I think, is more critical with the winter overflow shelter coming online.
Got it. And if the 12 weeks for phase one puts us in early December for phase two kicking off, if I'm doing my math correctly. Okay.
Yeah, we started September 1st.
And I put up an FAQ that Mayor Mendenhall put out about the homeless camp abatement just in the chat function for people to check out. A lot of media coverage on that, and I imagine that will continue as well. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Other questions for Tim? Yeah. Well, we appreciate you being here and giving us an update from the mayor's staff. And always, we come at you with the hard questions and the hard topics. So thanks for being on that.
You bet. Glad to do it.
Okay. We've got just a couple of agenda items left for tonight's meeting, and let's see if we can move through them. It actually kind of involves more of internal business, but before I get to that, I just want to mention that ELPCO does have a Facebook page where we post quite a bit of information, and also usually twice monthly newsletters. One came out just this past Monday, so if you don't get those, go to our Facebook page, look at the agenda that's here. You'll be able to find out how to sign up. We always try to put a lot of information into those, and try not to clog your inbox too much. Let's go ahead to some of the internal business. We've been busy during the summer trying to fill some board vacancies that we've had. I have some candidates that we wanted to present to you to fill vacancies for West Emerson, Historic Gilmer, and the Treasurer Department. Let me see if I can share my screen here. And there we go. Can you guys see that? These are the representatives for that we have selected for these positions. You can see that map of ELPCO over there as well. And so I wanted to just give a moment for these candidates to just quickly introduce themselves and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we will have a community vote to see if we can accept them onto the ELPCO board. So can we start off with Bradley? You're top left there. Could you unmute yourself and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. My name's Bradley Shoup. I've lived in this neighborhood now for, I think it's been about 5 years. My wife and daughter, I've got a 14-year-old daughter, freshman year of high school. It's kind of tough because she's having to do it all online. So I had kind of hoped for her to have a more normal freshman year, but that may not be what happens. Before that, for about 8 years, we lived in the Rose Park area. So I've lived in Salt Lake for, roughly 14 years, 13, 14 years. The whole time I've been here, I've been a Salt Lake City police officer. Still am. I'm currently assigned to the detective division doing investigations. But my intention of joining the ELPCO was not as another police officer. We've got Detective King, and that's part of his job is to do the community outreach things for this area. I'm just a neighbor in the neighborhood who loves this area. I love this neighborhood, this area. I love my neighbors. You may have seen me waving to everybody that's been walking past as as we've had the meeting. So I just want to be a little more involved and be part of a bigger part of this community in this city.
Gotcha. Thank you, Bradley. Thanks for introducing yourself. Appreciate that. Bradley would be representing the West Emerson neighborhood, which is below 13th South and west of 11th East, actually west of 10th East, if I'm looking at it correctly. Next up, could we have Ann Weaver? Ann, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to folks here.
Hi, I'm Ann Weaver. I've been in the Salt Lake now for over 10 years. I've been in this neighborhood for most of those years. I'm an engineer and project manager. I work for a company out by the airport. We build commuter rails, cars. I wanted to join ELPCO, similar reasons. I want to be, I love being in this area, and I just wanted to contribute more to the community.
Thank you. Ann would be coming on as the treasurer, which means she gets to get giant bags of gold coins that we keep around. So we didn't tell you about that, did we? Yeah, we're old school. They're currently in my closet. All right, next up we have Rebecca Huber and William Huff to represent East, I guess we call historic Gilmer, but sometimes people just call it Gilmer Park. Go ahead and introduce yourself, guys.
Hi, I'm Rebecca, and this is William. We moved into the neighborhood about a year and a half ago. We were previously living in the Liberty Wells area, and I was on the Liberty Wells Community Council board for a couple of years, and we were involved with some of the activities in the Liberty Wells area, like the farmers market and a lot of the community activities. And we just really loved being part of the community council and the board. And we really love this neighborhood. So we're excited to be in this neighborhood and have an opportunity to join the board here and to get involved with some of the activities and really meet neighbors and just, yeah, some of the same things, but just in a wonderful neighborhood that we really enjoy. It's not too far from Liberty Wells, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if we
I just want to echo what Rebecca said. It'd just be nice to put some of this pent up quarantine energy into helping the community. So.
Yeah, we appreciate your interest. That's we've been adapting as a community council to be online. We can actually get a lot done. We can still move on these issues. So thank you for introducing yourself, all four of you. And now we'll have what we call our Bob's Rules of Order community vote. So normally we would have people raise hands, but it looks like we've got about 22 participants here. Why don't we just do each individual, and we'll just do a thumbs up, or if you're, you can raise your hand if you're not doing a video, or just put something in the chat. We just got to get to 11 or 12 and we can say we're over the threshold. So for
what if you're
Bradley,
president of East Liberty Park?
Why don't we just vote for all of them at once, Jason?
You want to do it in one big tranche? Okay, we'll do it all in one tranche. So does everyone except the three new board representatives, four actually by people, just raise your hand, give a thumbs up. Let's see if we can get to 22. You can vote for yourself, don't worry. Just like in 5th grade student council. All right.
Yeah, let's do it.
Not different from 5th grade student council. All right, we're good. We've got it over 50%. Welcome to everyone to the ELPCO board. Now we'll tell you what you really signed up for. No, just kidding. Pretty much meetings like this and a lot of fun work. Cool. All right. So we next have nominations for the existing positions. We kind of keep track. There's 2-year terms for board members and co-chairs. So the positions that are up right now are East Emerson, East Liberty Park, and the co-chair, the even-year co-chair, which is me. So currently our East Emerson representative is Jeff Larson. Jeff, do you want to keep doing this?
I'm in, if you'll have me.
Okay. All right. Are there any other folks who would be interested in serving in East Emerson? Any other nominations? Okay. Jeff
I live
did.
over here. If you wanted to do something else, I would do it. I'd be interested in being the board, but wherever I fit easiest.
Michael, do you know, are you in the East Emerson neighborhood?
Yeah, I live just north of Westminster.
Got it. So one of the things we're proposing a little bit later in this meeting is creating at-large positions. So that could be, that's one of the reasons we're trying to be a little bit more flexible as a board to bring in folks who want to be involved, but we don't necessarily have a spot. So let's hold off on that, and we'll see if we can approve the at-large positions. We could find a spot for you and others that are interested. Cool. Plus, Jeff said that he would arm wrestle anybody who challenged him, and I've seen him. Man, it's bad. Don't want to get into that. Okay, East Liberty Park. Current sort of representative there is Andrew Stone. Andrew, are you interested in staying on?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so the East Liberty Park area is kind of actually it's the west side of the community council, but just east of Liberty Park. Anybody else interested in nominating themselves or someone else for the East Liberty Park position? Don't see any. What we do is we do nominations this month, and then we vote the next month, sort of like a two-part system to just give more people time.
So Jason, if I may usurp your conversation for a moment.
Sure, go ahead.
So speaking as the other co-chair, I would nominate Jason Stevenson for another term as co-chair of ELPCO. It needs a second.
I'll second that.
Any opposed?
I was going to try to get out of it.
No.
Are there any other candidates who would like to run for that position? Then I would move that the nomination be closed and Jason proceed.
Okay, thanks, Daryl. That was good usurping. Very good. Just like it is in the books. So it looks like we've got, and thank you, I forgot all about that second stuff. You know, Bob's Rules of Order, we tend to forget that stuff. It looks like we've moved through all the ones that I have noted. And
can I make one other point?
Sure.
And if you can, Christina Robb is, I believe, online. And it's a point of clarification in our bylaws. And I don't know if you want to show that for everyone to read or discuss how that works. It sounds, you wonder, what is the west of east position? And it's a small part of our geography. West is just west of East High School. And that's the neighborhood that she represents. And we've codified that with a change to our bylaws. So maybe you could, I believe Christina's here, if you could show her.
Sure. Well, here, let me show the map first so everyone can see what you're mentioning there. If everyone can see that west of east in the upper right-hand corner, it does, yes, literally mean west of East High School. Christina came onto the board a couple of years ago to represent that neighborhood. Christina, did you want to add anything about that? We will discuss it in the next section on the bylaws a little bit.
I'm fine to just wait until we get to that part of the agenda. See if anybody has any questions about it.
Got it. Okay. Cool. So we will have the votes next month in October 23rd meeting on all of these positions, except for the ones that we just filled today for Historic Gilmer and West Emerson and the treasurer. All right. Any questions about what we just kind of raced through in a sort of authoritarian way?
I found my microphone.
Okay, great.
I would just be hoping that Jeff could introduce himself briefly for new people, please. Thank you.
Gotcha. So Jeff Larson, I presume you mean?
Yes.
Gotcha. Jeff, can we put you on the spot?
Yeah, that's fine. I live on Emerson, on Browning in the East Emerson area. I've lived there for 17 years. It started out as a bachelor pad, and I had a few roommates helping me pay my mortgage. And then I got married about 15 years ago and kicked the roommates out and made it a home. And I've really appreciated living in the neighborhood. all this time, and I've been in, sparsely involved in ELPCO for a couple years, and in the last 6 months, it's been a lot of fun to get to know the other board members and contribute to making this neighborhood a great place to live and where a lot of people want to be. And we really appreciate all the conveniences and other people and great things about it. And my family and I plan on being here a long time. I have 2 daughters and another daughter on the way, and so we're growing and excited to watch Salt Lake City grow along with us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeff. Jeff's been active in following some improvements coming along on the McClellan Trail in that neighborhood and checking out some of the ADUs and other planning projects that have been happening there as well. So we appreciate his active involvement in that neighborhood. Cool. Any other questions? Any other things people want to bring up before we move to the bylaws? Which we save to the end because it's the most exciting. Yeah. So the bylaws. This is the last thing we'll look at before we go to public comments and new business. We last revised the bylaws back in 2017, and that was to kind of clear up the voting. We had some weird language in there that we discovered that could give people multiple votes, so we changed that. This year, we decided to make a couple of changes based on defining a couple of positions like West of East and the new 9th and 9th Business Liaison. And then, as I mentioned, we wanted to add 2 at-large officers to the board to really take advantage of the skills and expertise and interests that people would have, even if there wasn't an available slot open on the board. And then we also wanted to add a section that would allow us to bring on non-officers, non-board members, but specialty positions for things like communications, social media, volunteer coordinator, just put language in there so that we could give people the recognition, a title, things like that, and not have to kind of make it ad hoc, which is kind of what we've been doing. So I'm gonna put this is a brief summary of the board changes in the chat section right there. And then I'm going to make the PDF of the board changes. I'm gonna share that screen. Let me think if I can do that. Things that we are changing are highlighted in, let's see, right here, are highlighted in red. And we actually put this in the agenda and we put it in our, I think we put it in our latest newsletter as well. As you can see, it's fairly simple, looks just like the US Constitution, just not as 18th century. And it has sort of what we are as an organization, how membership works. The changes, the first change happens in Article 4, where we talk about holding online meetings. That's something that a lot of groups have had to do. And basically we say that our online meetings are gonna follow the same form and function as our regular meetings with votes and things like that. So Utah legislature had to do that really quick before they switched online earlier this year. So we just thought we'd add some language like that. The bigger changes happen in Article 5, which is about the officers. So what we do is we actually expand the neighborhood representatives to 6 from 4 by adding West of East formally, even though Christina has been acting ably in that role for the past couple of years, and the 9th and 9th Business Liaison, who is Nancy Phillip, who is unable to make the meeting tonight, but has been doing a lot of work, especially in terms of bringing on new board members. Many of you who applied for board memberships heard from her, and she did a lot of the interviewing and running that project. So we define what those boundaries are. And then we talk about in section 3, adding 2 at-large officers who don't represent a neighborhood geography, but we say they could have a residence, business, occupational, volunteer, or social connection to the ELPCO neighborhoods. We just didn't want to say that you had to own property, but it could be someone who, works for a nonprofit that's based in ELPCO, or some other strong connection that would allow them to, contribute to the board and to the community. So at-large officers would be subject to the same terms, 2-year terms and votes and so forth like that as the other board members. And then in section 4, we talk about appointing non-officer positions, communications associates, volunteer organizers, something like the Liberty Park farmer market, things like that. If we wanted to start that or wanted to add some positions, then we could use that section to bring on those folks. And the other changes are just changing numbers. This kind of looks like a legislative bill now that I think about it. And that's kind of all we had. Are there any questions that folks have about that? Nothing in the chat. Basically, we'll discuss them tonight, and then we will vote on them at the October 23rd meeting. So this is really just more informational. We did strike out the language about everybody getting free ice cream at ELPCO meetings. Sorry, we just couldn't afford that. Just too much. Only the co-chairs get them. Yeah, no, just kidding. Okay, well, with that, we can move on to public comment and new business. Are there any issues, topics that folks want to bring up that you think ELPCO should be looking at that we're not, including meeting ideas, speakers, things that we should have on our radar? This is a good chance for us to get that info. So anybody? Parking, I see Shoshana. ELPCO is famous for talking about parking. We once had a meeting with 140 people at it talking about parking. We are actually, I can say, ELPCO helped select some stakeholders for a 9th South parking study, which Salt Lake City Transportation is putting on right now. Christina helped getting some folks from the 9th South area, the West of East area. We got a bunch of business folks from the 9th and 9th Business District. And then we even got some folks who live a little bit closer to Liberty Park, which is where a lot of the sort of new changes will be happening to 9th South. So that's one issue that we've been pretty involved in, and we will see some movement in that in the fall and winter as that parking study starts up and we start contributing more info both as an organization and by letting our residents know about that. Let's see. Any other questions? Any other issues? Daryl, you mentioned next month's business. I know you've got a couple of things that you might want to bring up that could come up on the October agenda. Do you want to tell us about those?
Briefly, yes. We've been approached by Phil Winston, who's a longtime developer in our neighborhood, has built and remodeled a number of properties along 9th South. He has 2 projects that he will be joining us with for our October 22nd meeting. So just as a heads up, he's purchased the home on 9th South and Lincoln Street on the northeast corner. It looks like an old brick bungalow. It's a 4-plex right now. And then the other property that he's purchased is the gravel lot that is on 8th South, and I'll term it approximately 810 East. It's next to the Smith's parking lot. And so he'll be joining us for October to present his ideas for development on both of those properties.
Gotcha. I'm just looking that up on 9th South and Lincoln. That is right across from the veterinary place, probably diagonally across from it. Is that right?
Northeast corner.
Northeast or northwest corner?
Northeast corner.
Northeast corner. That's a 4-plex. Oh, that is a 4-plex. Okay. So it's actually right south of Roland Hall's campus.
Exactly.
I've knocked on those doors quite a bit. I think I know that place. So he's purchased that. And you mentioned it's the gravel parking lot or gravel area just, that's spot.
What used to be Emily Jane, recently remodeled business on 8th South and 8th East. Just behind that, between that business and Smith's parking lot, if you drive by, it just looks like a chain link fence, gravel, something.
Got it. Yeah, no, I can see that now on Google Maps as well. Got it. Okay, so Phil wants to come and tell us about those projects?
Right.
Okay. Phil Winston has developed actually quite a lot of the projects that you've seen along 9th South. Daryl, let me think. The building right at the roundabout, a couple on 11th South. Didn't he do Hub and Spoke? And
Hub and Spoke down on 13th and 11th East.
Yeah.
He did the orthodontic office on 7th East and 9th South. What used to be the bakery on 9th and 9th. That's
right. Which is now Vessel Kitchen, right?
Vessel Kitchen, yes.
Yeah, and Tsunami as well, the building that Tsunami's in.
His offices are upstairs at Tsunami.
Got it. Okay, so we always welcome Phil to come by and tell us what he's up to. We one of the roles that ELPCO has is that we are we have a role in the planning process, so that usually if a project needs exemptions or changes from zoning, we usually get to speak to the developers and get to know about that, because we have a voice at the Planning Commission about whether we think it's a good idea or not. So we'd like to create kind of an open forum for people to bring questions and get answers. That's one of the big roles that ELPCO has. And actually takes up quite a few of our meetings. Tonight, we actually didn't have any of that, but sounds like we'll have some in October. Okay. Any other new business? Any other issues that folks think we should be looking at? I will add that Liberty Wells and ballpark communities are definitely facing a lot of challenges with crime and homeless camps. Not that those two are related all the time, but there is a lot of issues that have been created there. There's also been several violent crimes, murders, and aggravated assaults in ballpark over the past couple of months. We've been working pretty closely with Amy Hawkins, the chair of ballpark, and Zach Bartholomew at Liberty Wells. And although our community council is somewhat away from where all that is happening, we view these issues as District 5 and Salt Lake City issues. And so we're not just going to stand on the sidelines and say, hey, that's your issue. So we're going to try to do what we can to get involved, offer help, support. And you saw Amy was on our call as well earlier today. We try to attend their meetings. So watch for more coming about that. And I think East Liberty Park is going to do what we can to put the right pressure to get some of these issues resolved.
It's also worth noting that Landon Clark, who's chair of the Sugar House Community Council, has been with us all evening as well.
I'm sure he's having a better beverage than I'm having right now. That's all I got to say. And earlier I saw Samuel Hansen come on. Samuel is the Salt Lake City School Board representative for Precinct 5. So thanks, Samuel, for being on. And I know your term is just about to end. And we actually do have a school board election for Precinct 5 with 2 candidates on the November ballot. We did interviews with them back in May. I will put those interviews back up on the ELPCO Facebook page and in our newsletter so that you get to know those 2 candidates. Mohammed Bayed and Dorothy Draper are their names, and they are the 2 candidates who are seeking to take the Precinct 5 seat, as Samuel decided not to run this year. But Samuel, thank you for being on board and everything you've done to get Salt Lake City schools back operational after a lot of hurdles.
By mail.
Yeah, vote by mail. That's right. That's my day job. Any other questions? If not, I appreciate people staying a bit later. And we will see you on October 23rd. And that'll be our next meeting. But in the meantime, we'll see you online. And as Daryl likes to say, you want to give us your famous words, Daryl?
We wish you fair winds and following seas.
That's right. That's from a former Navy man. All right. So this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.